Hi everybody, this is Book S Reviews, and today I'm going to be doing a review on the Marvel Legends Toysrus Exclusive Guardians of the Galaxy 5-pack. So before I start this review, this is 3-inch scale. I got this when Toys R Us was going out of business because this set was originally $40, but I ended up getting it for $14 on sale, with their closing cost and everything. So let's go ahead and take a look at Star-Lord first. I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of the figures off the thing here, off my little diorama. So before we take a look at Star-Lord, let's take a look at the accessories that he comes with. So he comes with his elemental guns, and they don't look too bad. At least they're actually cast in a silver color instead of just a flat gray. And they have a little bit of sculpting detail to them, so it doesn't look too bad. These just kind of have to wedge them in at an angle to get them to stay. But they actually stay pretty good, like they don't fly out of his hands or anything while you're posing him around. He actually has a really tight grip on them, so that's pretty cool. So now let's take a look at the head sculpt. So the head sculpt, I think the sculpt is really nice, but I think the paint apps are pretty flawed on this figure. And if you look, the neck piece right there is an entirely different color than his head, than his face. So that's really odd. I mean, it's not really something you notice if you have it like, well, I guess you do notice it. It almost looks like he has a yellow collar on. It's so much of a drastic difference. So, like, his eyes just kind of look a little derpy. Like I said, I think the sculpt is there, but the paint isn't the greatest. But his hair's sculpted nicely. And this is just a re-release of the previous Star-Lord figure. And you can see that the colors are a little darker, and like the neck is a different color, of course. And he has the helmeted head on there. But the bad thing is when you try to pop this head off, because it is exactly the same body, just a new head. Like, the ball peg is the same and everything. When you try to pop the head off, this happens. That peg down there wants to just fly off, so that does suck. But he has some nice sculpting going on. And if you look, though, his arms are a slightly different shade of blue. It's actually more this color. There, now it's picking up. It's a brighter blue, so the colors don't match up too great. His belt buckle actually has painting to it, so that's pretty good. And he has a little bit of a dry brushing, or a wash over him, of black that brings out the details pretty nicely. And not much more going on. So let's go ahead and go over his articulation. I'm going to set that Star-Lord over there now. So for his articulation, he's got a ball-jointed head that can look back just that far. And it can't really look down because that neck wants to move. If you try to move it, it'll just do that. So I am going to have to find a way to fix that. He's got ball-jointed shoulders that can move out that far. He's got swivel at the bicep, single-jointed elbow, swivel at the wrist, ball-jointed diaphragm that can move back that far. He can crunch forward all the way. He has a waist swivel. He's got ball-jointed hips that can just about do a complete split. He can kick forward all the way. He can kick back all the way. He's got swivel at the thigh, double-jointed knee, and a swivel at the ankle that can move side to side. And it should be able to move up and down, but it does not. I just about broke the figure trying to get that to move before this review, so I don't want to force it. So, up next, let's take a look at Gamora. And Gamora has a few accessories too, so we will look at those first. So first up, she comes with these twin blasters here. They're exactly the same. And they're cast in silver too, which I like. I think maybe I might do a dry brushing of black over it just to bring out some of the details a little better. But they look pretty good overall. I think this is my favorite figure from the set because this is the only one her and Groot are my favorites because I didn't get these. I have the original Guardians 3-pack where these were originally released. It was Star-Lord, Drax, and Rocket Raccoon. And Groot and Gamora, they weren't made till like 5 years later. I don't know. It was a long time to wait though. So there she is with her pistols, looking pretty good. But she doesn't have any holsters or anything. She really doesn't in the comics either. But it would be nice if she had like magnets or something in the guns, where you could just like attach them like that to her hip. That'd be a really nice feature, and I know that won't happen, but that would be nice. And then she comes with her sword, which looks pretty good. It's silver gold and has a black handle. And it's actually not warped at all. Drax's knives were pretty warped. I figured this would be too, but no, it wasn't. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Gamora. So for the head sculpt, I like her head sculpt. I originally thought this was just Shauna the She-Devil's head sculpt, but it wasn't, because her hair was over her face. But her eye wasn't painted or sculpted on underneath. Her hair was just over her face and there was nothing underneath. There was no eye or anything. So I like that Hasbro actually painted that eye on. And I think her eyes look pretty nice for being a 3-inch figure. These newer 3-inch figures aren't as great as the old ones, like they don't have as much articulation and sculpting and paint. But I think Gamora looks pretty nice. I like the gold around her eye, that looks pretty good. And her hair's cast in all one green color, but it looks pretty nice too. And on her armor, her whole armor has marbleization going on it. It's kind of a white color, although on her legs it's more of like a pearl color. And it has like a brownish tint to it. I don't know what that's from. That's kind of odd that it's kind of a different color, but it does look pretty nice. Like these navy parts on her, those are actually glossy. Well, they're just glossy. I don't know what else I was going to say, but they're glossy, which looks pretty good. And her armor's painted on fairly nicely. You do get some paint runs right there. You get a little bit of white running right there. Get a little more white right there. And then this piece on her armor right here, this red piece, just doesn't have any paint on it. Also, that's a pretty simple fix. I think I could fix that pretty easily just with a little bit of paint. But yeah, that isn't painted on at all. But her armor has some really nice sculpting detail to it. And there's a few little paint scuffs here and there. But overall, I think it looks pretty nice. And this is a really good figure. Like, if you don't want to buy this whole set, if you have the previous 3-pack like I do, I still bought it because that was a pretty good price getting it for $14. But, I would recommend getting Gamora because she is a very nice action figure. So now let's go over her articulation. She's got a ball-jointed head that can't look back at all. It can look down all the way. She's got side-to-side movement there. She's got ball-jointed shoulders. Her right shoulder will move out farther than her left. Her left will only go to there. She has single-jointed elbows that are on swivels. She's got ball-jointed hips that can move out that far. She's got double-jointed knees. Swivel at the ankle that can move up and down and side to side. And that is it. That's why I said these new figures, these new 3-inch Marvel Legends figures, since they switched it to Legends instead of Universe, they don't have as much articulation. But this is a really nice figure. I really like her specifically. So next, let's take a look at Rocket Raccoon here. So he is the least articulated out of all of them. He only has 2 points of articulation, but I will go over that in just a second. So here is his blaster, which is cast in that silver color as well. But I feel like it should have more paint detail to it. Like this should be red, and there should be some black right here. So there should be a little more paint detail to it, but it doesn't bother me that much. And it can fit in his hand very loosely, as you can see. Well, of course, it's not going to drop out now, but you can see that it is shaking. It does move when I move, and I don't like that. I wish that his grip would have been a lot tighter. So let's go ahead and take a look at Rocket now. So for the head sculpt, I think this is more comic accurate than the previous one. I did have to paint the previous one. It's a long story, but long story short, I accidentally got all the paint eaten off this figure, so I had to try and repaint it the best I could, which it needs repainted again with some better paint. But here's the previous one. And this one is more comic accurate, like he has the little red eyes, instead of having the white eyes with the red pupils. Like normal eyes, but he has red pupils. This one just has red eyes. And I do like the paint better on this one. This one looks a little cartoony with the paint. It is the same sculpt, but it almost looks different. And there is a little bit of black showing through the white there, but that really doesn't bother me. It just looks like his fur. That's excusable. And his costume as well looks pretty nice. This is more of just a figurine instead of a figure, because he only has 2 points of articulation. One thing that really baffles me is whatever this is right here on his right arm, like his armpit. Looks like he has a chunk of deodorant on right there. I don't even know what that is, because this is brand new and it shouldn't be glued together. Like it isn't glued together because that's all one piece right there. So I'm not actually sure what that is. But there you can see a little bit of how it fits in his hands, kind of loose. Like if you try setting it where it should be, it will stay, but anytime you move it, it'll just move. And there's his tail. Like I said, pretty nice sculpting detail and paint detail. I don't mind that some of the black is showing through the white there because it's his fur, you know. There will be some variation to the color in his fur. So that looks pretty good. So for the articulation for this figure, he has a ball jointed head that can look back just a little bit. Can look down all the way. He can move his head side to side. And he has a ball jointed tail. He can move all the way around, up and down just a little bit, and side to side just a little bit. So he only has 2 points of articulation, which kind of sucks. I mean, if they can give Yoda some articulation, I won't say a lot, but if they can give 3-inch scale Yoda some articulation, I figured that they could give Rocket some articulation. So up next, let's take a look at Groot. So he comes with no accessories, so we'll go ahead and look at his head sculpt. So this figure, I think out of all of these, probably has the best sculpting detail, because his head has that wood texture to it, like knotted wood and everything. And I think that wash of black over it really brings out a lot of the details. Although you can see that his head is made in 2 pieces here. That's the big thing that stands out to me, is that his head is made in 2 pieces. I'm not sure why Hasbro did that, because with the 6-inch figure, his head was just all one piece. I don't know, you know, I really don't know what it takes to make a toy. That's probably why I'm saying that. But I figure if they could do it with a 6-inch one, they could probably just scale it down to 3 inches. That's my logic, at least. But he has those gold eyes, which are pretty accurate to how he looks in the comics. And with my lights on here, it almost looks like his eyes are glowing. So that looks pretty cool. I've never actually noticed how his eyes almost look like they're glowing if you hold them in the light. Now his outfit has a nice texturing to it. It almost feels, I don't know what it feels like. But it does, leather, that's what it feels like. It feels like leather. It has that leathery texture to it, all over. And this is a newer figure, and he has pretty nice sculpting detail. Like I said, this is probably the best. He has a lot of sculpting detail going on over his whole outfit. And even on his arms. It has more of that wash of black over it. And his arms are very rubbery. His fingers are very rubbery as well. And his feet are actually rubbery too. Now, the only place where the paint isn't great on this figure is right here on his legs. Because you get some blue all the way down here. And then you get some brown that's showing through right there. Because his legs from the knee down are actually brown and the blue's painted over it. But it isn't painted that great. Again, like I said, I think this could be fixed just with my paint, like I could paint it. So I think that's a pretty simple fix. But that's the only part that I don't like about this figure, is right there. So now let's go ahead and go over his articulation. He's got a ball-jointed head that can't look back at all. It's just stuck in that position. Can't really look down at all, but he can move his head side to side. He's got ball-jointed shoulders that can move out that far. He's got single-jointed elbows that can move in very far, that are also on a swivel. He's got, oh no, I guess he doesn't. I guess it's just his, this piece right here, his tunic piece, that's connected to the belt right here. I guess it just swivels because it's a separate piece. I thought he actually had waist swivel. He's got ball-jointed hips that can do a complete split. Like, that is some really good articulation right there. He can kick forward all the way. He can kick back all the way. He's got single-jointed knee that also swivels. He's got swivel at the ankle and an ankle rocker. So the articulation surprised me on him too, because he's another recent figure. He was released in the Rocket and Groot comic 2-pack. I never actually saw that anywhere, so that's another reason why I got this. But yeah, Groot has some really nice sculpting and articulation. So now let's look at the final figure from this pack, Drax. So for his accessories, he has his knives right here, which are very, very, very warped. And they kind of look like butter knives. They're not pointy or anything. He comes with dual butter knives. He does have storage for these on the back of his belt. But, I'm putting that in right. I'm putting that in right. Okay, let me try this again. This is giving me some problems right here. Huh, I don't want to go in. It's a really tiny slit right there to put these into. It's too wide. Never actually tried that, but okay, now I'm just bending it more. So, okay, guess they don't go in there. So you can put them in his hands. They're cast together. I do like that, so that he won't lose his knives. The previous Drax figures' hands weren't. Like, the thumbs weren't cast to the hand. It makes them a little tricky to get into his hand, but he does hold them very tight, and he doesn't lose them like the previous figure. I can't remember if I ended up just gluing the knives in his hands or not, because of that. There. So now let's go ahead and take a look at his head sculpt. So, I think the head sculpt's pretty good, but his eyes. Man, the paint on his eyes. That is terrible. Like, his eye looks like it's leaking clear down his face. That is scary. And even over here, his eyes are supposed to be like... That's how big his eyes are supposed to be. And that one looks also like it's leaking a little bit. So that has some really bad paint apps right there. I actually had this set before when it was $40, and mine had a lot of defects to it, so I actually had to return it. And I ended up getting another when Toys R Us was going out of business, since I had to return the one since it had really bad paint apps, and I just told Toys R Us that once I opened it, it had some really bad paint apps. And I looked for everyone else's paint apps but Drax's, and I ended up getting one that looked like this. So here is the previous Drax, and the colors are about the same, but it's just a little bit lighter. So if you wanted to switch them, you could, but yeah, I don't think it would work because of the colors being different. This is more of a lime green. This is like a forest green, I guess. It's a darker color. But the only difference is his legs right here from the knees down. It's actually Iron Man's, because this is his Marvel Now look, which I don't understand. The same thing happened with the Guardians of the Galaxy 5-pack from the 6-inch line. They put the Marvel Now Drax with the 2008 team. Marvel Now didn't happen until 2012. So, yeah, that's weird. But you can see that these, he reuses those legs. It's the same in everything. Honestly, they should have just repainted Drax. I feel like that would have cost them less money than actually molding some new legs for him. I mean, it's not actually new, but they had to mold it in a new color because the original ones were molded in gold. So they had to take the time to put new molds out for these silver legs. So I feel like Hasbro could have saved money just by repacking this Drax in. So enough about that. Let's go ahead and look at the rest of this figure. So for his tattoos are applied pretty nicely. No paint mishaps there or anything. And he doesn't have as much paint as the previous Drax figure. The previous Drax figure had like a wash of black over it, which really brought out a lot of the details, like his muscles and everything. And there's his belt. The buckle is painted. And he has storage that doesn't work. If I put it down in some hot water, I could probably make it bigger so these would fit in there. And for some reason, he has green pegs right there. I don't know why they didn't just paint them silver or make them in silver, you know. Because that looks a little odd. It also looks a little odd up here, too. They could have just added some color to it, and it would have been fine, but yeah. So this is probably my least favorite figure out of the box set just because of his eyes looking so terrible. But I will attempt to fix those later today. I wanted to show them off in my review first. So if you get this set, definitely look, compare all of them, and see which has the best paint apps. Because I was too busy looking for good paint apps on Gamora, Rocket, and Star-Lord. And I didn't even notice Drax. Like, all the Draxes I saw looked pretty nice, and I just happened to pick this one up that had terrible paint apps. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation of the final figure from this pack. So he can't look up at all, and he can barely look down. It's just a little bit. He can move his head side to side. He's got ball jointed shoulders that can move out very far. He's got swivel at the bicep, single jointed elbow, swivel at the wrist, ball jointed diaphragm that can move back that far. He can crunch forward just a little bit. He can move side to side. He's got ball jointed hips that can move out that far. He can kick forward all the way. He can't really kick back. He's got double jointed knee, swivel at the ankle that can move up and down, and side to side. So the articulation is pretty good on this figure, but the paint, that's where I have a lot of the issues, is the paint. So now let's go ahead and show them next to each other now that they all have their accessories in their hands. I'm not usually used to reviewing packs like this. This is actually my first 3-inch review. I've never reviewed any 3-inch action figures before on my channel. So here Drax is next to Groot. And when I started this video, I had a horrible time getting them all to stand up. So hopefully I am able to do this semi-quickly. Actually, Star-Lord's the one I had the most trouble with standing up. Him and Gamora. Okay, just stand up there. There. And then finally, Rocket Raccoon. So there they all are next to each other with all of their accessories. So overall, I think it's a pretty good box set. If you do get one that does have some bad paint apps, I think it's something you could probably fix on your own. Like I said, you'd still just have to look at them. But I would recommend getting it, especially since they're on sale now. $40 marked down to $14. That's a really good price. So I would highly recommend this box set. So that's my review. And if you like this review, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.